Start your morning. Vikings' new offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo, had kind words for Kirk Cousins. He said Cousins is, quote, a heck of a football player. Cece, do you think Cousins might end up in Minnesota?
Of course he's a heck of a football player, but several other football players they asked him about, too. They asked him about Sam Bradford. Oh, Sam Bradford, I think he's the most accurate quarterback that I've ever seen. Of course, the coach is trying to keep everyone in the game because they can't reveal. Of course Minnesota would take Kirk Cousins. He would look nice in the purple, but they're also going to look at Case Keenum and other options. So I do believe the coach does like Kirk Cousins.
If you could find a way to make Cousins' contract work, where
a little free,
right, where you could keep that team around him, I think this would make a ton of sense. So of course they'll talk to him, but now that we've seen what Jimmy Garoppolo made off 9 starts, Kirk Cousins is about to shatter all the NFL records for player compensation. Now, those records will then be shattered likely by the next franchise quarterback. So I theoretically, if it were baseball and there's no salary cap, I'd say the Vikings go spend whatever it takes. But in the NFL, I don't know if it would work for Minnesota.
Basketball Hall of Fame finalists were announced on Saturday, headlining the class. Ray Allen, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Chris Webber, and Grant Hill. Nick, do you think that all 5 of these guys get in?
So 3 of them, the first 3 you mentioned, are absolute no doubters. Ray, Kidd, Nash. Hill and Webber are more question marks. But when you remember, it is not the NBA Hall of Fame. It is the Basketball Hall of Fame. And you incorporate not only the Olympics, but their collegiate careers as well. That will put Webber and Hill over the top. So, yes, I believe all 5 of these guys will be Hall of Famers.
And Webber didn't get in last year. I do believe this is the year he gets in. You make a great point. It's the totality of their basketball. So I know you being a big basketball fan would agree that all these players deserve to be in.
I absolutely think so. Yep, moving on. This was awesome. Donovan Mitchell won the dunk contest Saturday night, beating Larry Nance Jr. in the final round. I was impressed. Cece, how impressed were you with Mitchell's performance?
Oh, here we go.
Well, this is my guy. I mean, this has been my guy for Rookie of the Year. Now I'm starting to feel Nick Wright and several other people jumping on the bandwagon. But the most impressive rookie, not only in the dunk contest, but what he's done in the first 55 games. One of 6 players in the NBA, Sarah, to get over 6 points in the 4th quarter. So not only is he outstanding, he's playing off in Utah. And I think Utah right now is on an 11-game win streak.
That has nothing to do with the dunk contest. You just keep going your Donovan Mitchell propaganda campaign.
I'm a professional broadcaster. Anytime they open up the window, you see an opportunity to slide on.
Okay, and Donovan Mitchell certainly has been the best player of any guys drafted this year. But Ben Simmons still in the rookie class, and he was drafted last year, but he counts. But that's not the question. The question is about him in the dunk contest. He's been extraordinary. He was extraordinary in the dunk contest. I like the homage to Vince Carter.
Yes.
Wearing the old Raptors
Darryl Griffin,
jersey.
Dr. Duncanstein from Louisville.
Right. I actually really enjoyed this dunk contest.
I don't even think you know who Dr. Duncanstein is.
Oh, give me... Man, go to the next question. You're going to make me raise my
Player of the Year.
Yeah, I know
him
who
and
he
Bobby
is. Cover
Turner.
of Sports
Male High
Illustrated,
Bulldog.
CC. That's where he got the nickname. Who gave him the nickname, CC? Who gave him the nickname, CC?
It doesn't matter, but let me tell you something. At the All-American game, he was shooting dice. That's where I met him, because my brother Butch was in the All-American game with him.
You was 12 years old shooting dice with Dr. Duncan.
I was just holding the money.
Okay.
We'll talk to this in the break. But finally, LeBron James won the All-Star Game MVP last night, scoring 29 points, 10 boards, dished 8 assists, and had the game's biggest offensive play down the stretch. It was LeBron's 3rd All-Star Game MVP. Nick, how impressive was LeBron last night?
And this was great. Now, I don't think that All-Star Game MVPs are a real part of a player's historical legacy. Like, so there's a very famous picture of Michael Jordan that shows him in front of all his major NBA trophies. So the 6 titles, the 5 league MVP trophies, the 6 finals MVP trophies. And in that picture is his 3 All-Star Game MVP trophies. And I always felt those kind of look out of place. Like, those are not part of his lore. So I don't think this is like a legacy statement for LeBron. But I do think that it was awesome to see the best player in the world in a competitive game amongst the other best players in the world, in an important weekend for the NBA, in a week where LeBron's had to talk about everything but basketball because of the nonsense swirling around him, that he stepped up on both ends of the court from start to finish, CeCe's the oldest guy out there. He plays the most minutes. He hits the shot to tie it. He hits the shot to give him the lead. He gives him the assist to not quite seal the game, to give him a 3-point lead. And then the defensive stand along with KD on Steph. Like, it was, the NBA couldn't have scripted it better. And the fact that their best player was the best player on the court was quite fitting.
Yeah, and all those trophies, I disagree with you as far as Michael Jordan. All those trophies should be there because it's the perfect time for the best players not to play. They got every excuse, all the distractions, they're the best, all the obligations, all the things that are required of them, media. They could take that weekend off. They know that he's logging the most minutes. Like, so for me, I do believe those trophies, they should be in there because it is the biggest stage besides the finals, which a lot of players don't make it to the finals. When are you going to see all the best players? At the All-Star game. And, Nick, you know that I'm one, if they're keeping score and if the lights are on, I'm about doing your absolute best. So I do think that it's important that LeBron, when Steph is there, when KD is there, that if he is the absolute best, that does go along with his other MVP during the regular season or finals MVP or finals trophy. So I think it's very, very important that the best do their best. We talk about Adam Silver changing the rules and wanting to be more emphasis. Well, why wouldn't we put an emphasis on the best players? So this was a very competitive all-star game. So I'm glad to see how the players perform. And Russ winning the MVP the last couple years, I believe it was nice to see LeBron or one of the marquee guys. And it wasn't just based on offense. It was based on how he normally plays during the regular season with an all-round game.
And well, what about relative to how his month had went in January and then where he's trending now? I mean, we've seen a rejuvenated LeBron with all the changes in the how much
February
is
shaking up to be as good as January was bad for LeBron and the Cavs as a whole. Now, we'll see the Cavs again. We've seen a very small sample of them post-trade deadline, but they've looked great in both of those games with the new players. And LeBron does look re-engaged, rejuvenated, and ready to attack this last third of the season. And it is worth noting, LeBron's played in every game this year, which is he doesn't take a lot of time off, but almost every year he takes off 5 to 7 games without being injured. He's played in every game this year until last night. The other interesting thing to me, CeCe, was aside from LaMarcus Aldridge, who played 4 minutes, and Al Horford, who the score sheet says he played 12, but man, I don't remember a single one of them. There were no 30-year-olds out there. It's a young man's league, of course. These guys are as young as Embiid and Towns. To the older end is Durant and Steph. And then there's 33-year-old LeBron James, drafted in 2003, who's still the standard bearer for all these guys who are supposed to be in their athletic primes.
All right, well, Adam Silver, of course, made the changes to the All-Star game. So let's move on to the massive changes that could be coming to the NBA playoff structure. Commissioner Silver says the league is studying the idea of abandoning the East-West playoff format in favor of seeding teams 1 through 16. Silver said the biggest holdup is the travel in the early rounds. Nick, would changing the playoff format be good for the NBA?
It potentially, I think, could be great. And I think it's smart of Adam Silver to publicly acknowledge that they are considering this now, because what they can't do is this. They can't wait and see if LeBron goes west and then be like, oh, guys, by the way, we're changing the rules. Like, you have to at least have it in the hopper ahead of time. And Daryl Morey was on Twitter this week in the Rockets GM saying the NBA is considering more drastic changes than even the ones that Adam Silver has laid out specifically. More things that I think would be more shocking, up to and including having seeds 1 through 14 be in the playoffs and then a tournament for those final 2 playoff seeds to kind of dissuade teams from tanking. There are some ideas that I have as far as how they could tweak it. But I do like the idea of you get the best 16 teams, regardless of conference. And if you're worried about travel, you can, depending on the distance between teams, either do a 2-3-2 or a 2-2-1-1-1 format, which can minimize the travel.
Yeah, I like the concept that they're trying to get better. Like, if we're looking at the playoffs, and this has been going on for 4 years. So this is the first time the commissioner has really mentioned it publicly that they're looking at it. But if you look at Golden State, since they've been on a record pace 4 seasons ago, that's when people publicly started looking at, wow, should maybe we cancel the normal format of East versus West because the West is so top-heavy. Because at that time, San Antonio had a record-breaking pace for the NBA. Right. So you have two record-breaking teams in the West, and now we've seen what they've done. Houston, OKC, and that potentially more players went to the West. The only way to correct it is by going to a 1 through 16 team format.
The other thing we saw this offseason was Paul George go from the East to the West. Jimmy Butler go from the East to the West. So some of those talented players went out there. Bill Simmons tweeted this. It's something that I've said, I've talked about in other sports. I love the idea of it. I want to see what you, as a guy that could have dealt with something like this, and if the NFL had done it. What if, so there's 16 teams in it. 1 through 8 obviously have home court. What if you get to pick your opponent in the first round? So the 1 seed looks at teams 9 through 16 and says, okay, as a part, in addition to our reward of getting home court, we get to decide who of the 8 teams are available we want to play. And then the 2 seed doesn't, you go on down the list. To me, it would create maybe some animosity. Wait, hold on. We didn't have the worst record, and you picked to play us. It also could mitigate if you're really worried about the travel. All right, we'd rather, if we're Golden State, we'd rather play Portland, who's the 14 seed, rather than play Washington, who's the 16 seed, however it worked out. And there could be some strategy as far as, say you're Boston, and Cleveland's not in the top 8, and Kevin Love's only been back 5 days. You're like, man, we're going to have to go through them at some point anyway. We're going to go to the finals. Might as well try to, you know what? We want to play Cleveland first round. To me, I don't see a downside to it. I think it'd be exciting. I think it'd be interesting, like the All-Star draft could have been.
Well, obviously you're on vacation. You just think it's too dang hard. All right. What do you do the second round? Do you still select your opponents?
No, then it's a true bracket.
Then it's a bracket?
It's a true bracket. It's seeded the way it is now.
I just think with the private planes that these teams own, I think that the seeding, if they do go to the new seeding, not being East and West, they should just go by the numbers compared to, so we don't have beef, so we don't have teams that think that people are arbitrarily picking on them. Just do a seeded system based on the numbers.
I love this. Can you imagine the meetings between owners, front office, coaching staff, who's deciding what team? I mean,
why are you
that's enough to blow up an organization.
It's not like everything that you say is like Einstein brilliant.
I'm not saying it's Einstein brilliant, and I'm not even saying I'm the only one talking about this. I know this idea is being talked about.
That means you're just not the only crazy person. That means just because someone else is talking about it.
I know this idea has been floated in the league office. You said there would be no reason for beef. Beef is good. Like a little animosity, a little no one believed in us.
Is that proven?
Well,
that proven you just made that up?
No. We saw in the NFL one of the themes of the Eagles is we're underdogs.
That wasn't a beef.
No. But nobody's a bigger underdog.
So was New England. They said they were an underdog.
Okay, but nobody's a bigger underdog than the team that gets picked as this is the team we want to play in the first round.
I thought players didn't listen to the respect thing and everything. So now you're on the corner of they do listen to everything.
Man, you've been telling me for 6 months. You've been telling me for 6 months that that's a real thing. I'm finally listening to you. I'm trying to have a forward-thinking idea. People got upset that we couldn't watch the All-Star draft, right? Do you know how exciting it would be? All right, with the #1 overall pick, James Harden's out there. It's like, all right, you know what? We want to play the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid coming and get it. With the #2 overall pick, Golden State. All right, we want to play the New Orleans Pelicans. Come on. That would be awesome.
But it'd be for wrong reasons. We want to be like, I like that city because they got better entertainment.
Oh, come on. They're not doing that in the playoffs.
Okay.
That would, come on, man.
What about just the traditionalist view of it? Because I think originally, because Adam Silver, and it's all ideas and speculation, it would still be the top 8 from the West and the top 8 from the East. But then you got the records in play, right?
So the one group, I mean, I think they're looking at all of it.
So the top overall. What about, do you think it takes away all of these changes and advancements in the game? Do you think it takes away from the traditional view of how playoffs are run and the format of the playoffs?
No, I think that people will adjust. Because if you look at the way it is, we want to see the best basketball. And if we're just formulating a new format just to get the best teams on the court, like I think people will adjust to that. I don't think that there's as much East as there is West. There's not as much Lakers, Celtics as we're used to seeing. So I believe that we'll develop new rivalries. And if one conference is easier, then they can't make the case that while their record, they're playing easier teams. So they had a worse record playing more games against because they're only going to the other conference for so many games. So I believe it worked itself out.
And what you don't want is consistently to have it feel like it did in the NFL in the 90s, where the biggest game was the conference championship game. For a long time in the 90s, it felt like the Super Bowl was the NFC championship game. And then it was the Super Bowl was a bit of a letdown. If LeBron goes to the Rockets or the Spurs and you don't reseed it, you will have the top 6 players in the league all in one conference. 9 of the top 11 all in one conference. Like, you've got to account for that. And I think that's one of the things they're trying to at least consider.
All right, well, coming up, is there anything that can stop the Cavs from marching straight to the NBA Finals? We'll discuss next on First Things First. You're all in on the Cavs, right?